My name is Mike Brown. I struggled against doing this. Every time I considered sitting down and putting this on paper, the recollection of the pain and the chaos was more than I wanted to relive. I became mentally paralyzed to the point of dysfunction just thinking about it. Then just this past April the 8th, on a Saturday night, a 32-year-old friend of mine died by suicide. Although there is no suicide in this story, if being part of this helps just one person stop and consider that they have options and that they are not alone, then I will make this effort. It was October 1976. I came home to find my wife on the couch crying. She had been crying a lot lately. Our daughter had been born about 3 weeks earlier. My wife's mother had come down and stayed with us for the first 2 weeks after Amber was born to help my wife get through the worst part. Then she had left. Now it was just the three of us, my wife, our infant daughter, and me. I sat beside my wife on the couch and asked, "Linda, what's wrong?" She began to sob uncontrollably. It took a long time to get her to say what was wrong. Finally, she said, "I found myself standing over Amber's crib with a razor blade." I ran to check on the baby. Amber was unharmed and sleeping. I paced back and forth in astonishment, wondering what to do. I went to the phone and called Dr. Montgomery. John was an elder in our little Bible church, but was also one of the leading psychiatrists in Dallas, though aged and semi-retired. When I told him the circumstances, he was quiet for a moment, then said, "I don't think Linda would ever hurt Amber." I said, "I can't take that chance." He agreed and had me get the baby ready and take Linda to the hospital. He admitted her to Collins Mental Hospital, where she stayed 10 days after he diagnosed her as manic depressive and put her on a regimen of lithium and trazodone. It was 1976. Fast forward 4 years to early November 1980. Linda had been fine, at least periodically when she stayed on her meds. Still lithium and trazodone, and there had not been, nor was there ever again, any threat of violence. But she didn't like being on the medications. Normal life was not for her. It was mundane and plain and boring and a drudge. When she would get off of her meds, she seemed happier for a while. Gradually happier and happier. Eventually she would sleep less, then less and less, then not at all. And talked and talked and talked about grandiose plans for herself and for us, but mostly for her. I would literally have to lock her out of our bedroom so I could get some sleep, so I could function at my 9-hour-a-day job. The next morning I would unlock the bedroom door and I could follow her trail around the apartment. She had started crocheting here, clipped recipes there, started sewing or a recipe catalog over there, and a novel in the other room. A dozen projects, none of them more than begun. But now, on November the 3rd, 1980, things had come to a breaking point. You see, sometime in 1979, when she had again stopped taking her meds, she had also stopped taking her birth control pills. I didn't know she got pregnant. From me. The doctors wouldn't let her medicate while she was pregnant, so that period was a real roller coaster. After our son was born in January 1980, she was moved directly from Hobbitsville Maternity Hospital, once again to Collins Mental Hospital. A childless couple in our church volunteered to take care of Amber during the day. I would leave for work in the morning and take Amber to their home. After work, I would travel to the baby hospital where I would check on our newborn son, then go visit Linda in the mental hospital, then go pick up my daughter for the night. The next morning, start all over. A few days into her stay, I got a call at work from the baby hospital. "Mr. Brown," they said, "we can't keep your baby very much longer. You need to come get him." Well, I didn't have any baby clothes with me at work, so I stopped in the hospital gift shop and bought him some clothes. That night, I went to see Linda first, then went to get baby Joe. They brought him out to me, and I removed his little hospital gown and put him in the clothes I had bought for him and took him home. A few days later, back on her lithium regimen, Linda returned home. That was January 1980. She only stayed on her meds a couple of months this time. Now, November the 3rd, 1980, I've come home from a 9-hour day at work, and I am standing in the tiny apartment kitchen, looking out over our living room at the chaos and wreckage. The sink is full of dirty dishes with decaying food, and the counter is piled with more dirty dishes and old food. I could turn out the lights on them, but within minutes they would be covered with nasty Texas cockroaches, some of which I could see crawling in and out of the plates. My 9-month-old son is sitting crankily in a high chair to my left. He has a bowl of oatmeal in front of him, but most of it is on his face and looks like it has been there since breakfast. He has diarrhea running down his leg. I know that when I change his diaper, that raging diaper rash and the nasty fish-smelling Desitin ointment will still be there. My 4-year-old daughter is still in her nightgown and is singing to her doll in the living room. The curtains are still closed from this morning. My wife is going back and forth across the living room, chattering about something. I'm so lost in my own desolation and despair that what she is saying doesn't register at first. I asked, "What did you say?" She replied, "I'm going to visit my sister Beth in Arkansas tomorrow night. Southwest Airlines has a special, and I can fly to Tulsa for $25 and Beth can pick me up there." I paused and said, "Why couldn't you go tonight?" She said, "I was going to hock my class ring and my wedding ring to get the money for the ticket." I said, "You don't have to hock your ring. I can go to Skaggs Albertsons and write a hot check and get you the money. You pack what you want to take. I'll get the kids ready and take you to the airport. We can stop at Skaggs on the way." Later, I carried my baby boy and held my daughter's tiny hand. We waved goodbye to their mother as she boarded the plane. When we got back to the car, I cried and my daughter cried. And then we went home. I arranged for a sitter for the kids during the day, and over the next couple of weeks, I washed the dishes, fogged and sprayed for roaches, worked through the mountains of laundry, and quietly breathed. During my lunch hours, I would go to a nearby park and sit on a bench and watch the ducks. I thought it was peace. It wasn't peace. I've known peace since then, at least episodically, but it was lack of chaos. And that was enough. Linda was going to file for divorce from Arkansas, where she remained, but like so many others, other things, she couldn't see it through. So I filed. It caused quite a stir in our little conservative Dallas church, many of whom didn't believe in divorce under any circumstance. A few months afterward, I got a call from one of the deacons. Dan and his wife Becky had been friends with Linda and me. He wanted to meet me for lunch and talk about something, so I agreed, and we met at a church parking lot and opened sack lunches in the Cabbages pickup. He explained that he and Becky had really been praying about it a lot, and they would like to bring Linda back to Texas to stay with them so she could be close to the kids. He strongly maintained that it was not to get us back together again. I suspected that this was a lie, and I told him that I didn't think he knew what he was getting himself into. But I finally agreed after his assurance that they would pick up the kids and supervise them visiting at their house every other weekend. They went to Arkansas and got Linda shortly afterward. Things went according to plan at first. The kids were glad to be with their mother for the visits. Then one Sunday, after having taken the kids, Dan called and said he couldn't bring them home as planned, and I'd have to come and get them. I did, but voiced my displeasure. He assured me it wouldn't happen again. Then a month or so later, I got another request from Dan to meet for lunch. While he toyed with his sandwich in the cab of his truck, Dan said, "Mike, Betty and I have really been praying about this." He hesitated and then said, "We think Linda is devil-possessed." I nearly choked on the bite of my sandwich, which catapulted from my mouth. When I stopped laughing and wiped the involuntary tears from my cheek, I said, "Dan, Linda doesn't have a demon. She has a disease, an illness for which she refuses treatment. And she has a very strong will. She is an adult, and she is the only person with authority over her life. You can't control her. God knows I can't control her. And don't say I didn't warn you." He seemed disheartened to have his theory, over which he and Becky had prayed and weeping so earnestly, to be blown away by the reality of truth. I suspect that he thought this simple revelation would come with a simple biblical solution, laying on of hands or some such. I wanted to comfort him in his sadness, but I had other things to do. I raised my children alone. I never remarried, though Linda did a time or two. I made sure the kids got to see her when we would visit my relatives in Arkansas. Even left them with her a few times when they were older, under her mother's and sister's oversight. There are remnants of Linda's hereditary disease that I see in some of my children, as well as in some of theirs. They are strong, these kids. And even the ones who show the signs of these remnants or carry a confirmed diagnosis are fully functional. And they are creative, bright, and wonderful. Linda was also diagnosed later as schizophrenic. She saw unicorns in her closet, and at times was convinced that she worked for the Department of the Navy in a secret facility 60 stories underground, or however many it was at the time. And she reinvented her origin and her past in colorful, often sexually graphic ways. I couldn't let my children see the letters she sent them when they were very young. The letters started very organized and rational, but as she added to them daily, they veered toward wild fantasy, and 20 pages or more later, they ended only in incoherent, illegible scrawls. Linda died of congestive heart failure a few years ago. My children adored her, as they should, and she them. And my life would not be what it is today if I had never known her. That brings me to my final remarks. You've heard and will hear a lot of personal stories tonight. These stories are genuine and they are powerful. Take them with you. But keep in mind that for each of these stories, there are backstories. These people are not islands. They touch and are touched by many others around them. If Linda were here, I'm sure that she would have a totally different perspective on the events that I have related. She might not be as kind to me as I was to myself. And her story would be no less genuine or less powerful. What is your story?